Alright guys, so this is the DJI Mavic 3 and I've been shooting with this drone for like 6 months now, but I've been wanting to show you everything from it, but I waited until this moment for a really good reason. I mean, you guys have seen this drone like crazy by now, but there is something you haven't seen, so let's take a look. So I want to show you guys what's new with this latest firmware. If you're anything like me, there was one thing in particular that you were crazy excited about, and that was the telephoto camera. And I don't even know that DJI knew just how much we would use and want a telephoto camera for video in a drone, because it was called Explore mode, and it was absolutely perfect for doing that. But there was so much more that I wanted to do with it, and it was fun to just try and shoot parallax from the drone, getting that kind of amazing compression that you can get from longer lenses. The telephoto camera is now available outside the Explore mode. It does have a 162mm focal length. It can shoot 4K up to 50 frames per second, and it has full pro manual support, so now you can manually control exposure from this camera. You can also use it for photos as well, and now you get full RAW support, the same manual control that you got in the video mode, and the camera photo modes now include some of the more complex photo modes like single shooting, you get AEB burst, time shots, and a few others. So there are some massive improvements if you want to use this 7x zoom camera. Also, if you have the Cine version, you can now shoot ProRes LT in addition to HQ. So you have another file type that doesn't take up quite as much space before. All the new versions now have HLG as a color profile. And if you were shooting in D-Log, there is now a color display assist, which is absolutely huge because sometimes if you're shooting log, it can be really tough to see certain objects in the sky to judge exposure. So now you have that color display assist. Plus, if you're shooting quick shots, you can now use those with full log support and HLG, so now those are way more useful. And in slow motion, you get 4K up to 120 frames per second and 1080p now up to 200 frames per second. And there's also a little secret add-on that I honestly had no clue even existed up until a couple months ago. And that is this. This is a wide angle lens modification. It converts it to a 15.5mm wide angle field of view. And now there is full support in the intelligent flight modes like hyperlapse, master shot, quick shot when you use this. And it's really awesome because with this little add-on and the new firmware, you now have 3 focal lengths going all the way from 15.5mm to 162mm with full manual support. So I have been shooting with the Mavic 3 for about 6 months now. If you guys are following me on Instagram at all, you probably saw that I took it down to Puerto Rico not too long ago. So definitely go follow me there. If you're not already, you can subscribe here. And I appreciate the like, guys. It means a lot and goes a long way to supporting me and keeping things going. But right now, there are a couple things that I've noticed about this drone during the last 6 months. And the first is that the quality, it's really unbeatable, especially considering the size of this drone. You get a 4/3 inch Hasselblad sensor. It has a 24mm wide angle lens as the main lens on this, a variable aperture from f2.8 to f11, can output 12.8 stops of dynamic range with the full 5.1K resolution supporting up to 50 frames per second, and you can shoot DCI 4K up to 120 frames per second. And that meant that if I wanted to crop a bit in post, I could do that even on a 4K timeline. I could get 2 times slow motion without reducing the resolution at all. I could get crazy 120 frames per second slow motion at full 4K, and I could throw in the wide angle converter if I wanted even that more expansive view. but also the colors on this drone. It uses Hasselblad's natural color solution, plus you have 10-bit log, and now you have HLG on this drone. And obviously, if you're a photographer, you still get that massive 4/3 inch sensor, 20 megapixels, and you get RAW support now with both the normal and telephoto cameras. Plus you get this cool wide angle lens, which can be really awesome for photos as well. The other massive improvement is flight time. So you get 46 minutes of flight time. And this is a way bigger deal than it seems, because if you've ever used these drones before, you know the problem isn't really that you're trying to shoot for 46 minutes straight. It's that you need to take off, fly to the location where you need to film, start shooting, maybe you got to do something else, and then you got to get back and still have like 20 to 30% battery life left over. I also tend to shoot boats quite a bit, and it can be really scary to do that with a smaller battery because it can take a while for the winds to die down, the waves to die down, or sometimes it just takes 2 to 3 passes before I can get it correctly lined up with the boat because the boat's always moving. So having that extra battery life is a massive deal for me. This also has APAS 5.0, which is DJI's obstacle detection system. Now on the Mavic 3, it can detect obstacles all the way around the drone in every direction. Plus it can intelligently plan out flights around your obstacle rather than just stopping in front of them. But definitely the one I use the most is ActiveTrack 5.0 because I am usually shooting objects, so either myself, cars, boats, just about anything that moves. And you can use this in a few different ways. So I know some people just want to shoot themselves, so they lock on themselves and have the drone kind of follow them around. But my favorite is to use it as like a second camera operator. And so I can lock the camera on my subject, still manually fly the drone myself. And again, this is allowing me to get shots that would be impossible to get with one operator. And typically you would need drones that have 2 operators that are very skilled to be able to pull off amazing looking shots like this. So definitely the most unique feature is still going to be that dual camera setup, because this is giving you a 162mm focal length second camera. And again, I'm not sure how much DJI knew that we were going to love having this. I certainly am using it quite a bit, but props to them for actually unlocking the full potential of this camera with this firmware update. But a couple of things you should know about this. So 162mm is long. I mean, just crazy long compared to 24mm. And shooting with something that long isn't exactly easy. So first of all, you need to be pretty far away from obstacles because it's tough to see what might be going on around you, and any harsh environment is going to be majorly amplified. So if you're shooting on a windy day or if you're flying it fast, I mean, I live near an ocean, so it's usually windy around here, you're gonna pick up a bit of vibration, but this is pretty par for the course. I mean, a friend of mine actually had the Sony AirPeak not too long ago, tried an 85mm lens on it and said it was basically unusable from all the vibrations. So the fact that you can actually use this for aerial shots at 162mm is insane. But DJI, if you're listening, having dual cameras is absolutely amazing. So in the future, if you want to swap this out with something like an 85mm focal length, we could be pulling off shots that you would typically need helicopters with state-of-the-art massive gimbal systems, and all that in a drone that literally fits in your bag. Now, I did question the Mavic 3 a bit when it first came out, mostly because there was a pretty noticeable price increase from the Mavic 2 Pro, especially if you start eyeing that Cine version with the 1TB internal SSD, remotes with the built-in screen, ProRes support. But I think now for me with this update, DJI has really helped justify this as a completely new drone. I mean, it has that second camera, full manual support on it. You have the wide angle camera mods. You get 45 plus minutes of flight time. The larger sensor, 5.1K at 50 frames per second, 4K DCI at 120, all from this larger sensor. I mean, this is no question a huge step up in a whole lot of ways, and there is nothing else that equals this kind of performance and feature set in something this portable. So 6 months later for me, not only does the original version of the Mavic 3 still offer more than anything that can fit into a pretty small camera bag, this new firmware update made it even better and puts it on a completely different level than the Mavic 2 Pro and the Air 2S. And guys, those cars that I was driving around, those were for some really awesome shoots that I was doing at the time. So definitely go check out those videos if you missed them. Hit me up with any questions that you have on the Mavic 3 and your thoughts on it so far. I'm heading out right now to go shoot with some brand new gear. So much awesome shoots heading your way soon.